So joining me today is Kristin Scheurer. Kristin's been with our company for 4+ years, I believe. We'll have to find out what her actual tenure is, but have gotten to know Kristin pretty well through her time here. Kristin is a technologist at heart, but she's a customer experience person at heart. Something I've grown to know and appreciate about Kristin is how meticulous she is, how detail-oriented she is, how process-driven she is. And she's just a very fun person to be around. She's got energy that she puts off into a room that's palpable. So hope you enjoyed this conversation with our Customer Experience Director at Live Oak IT Partners, Kristin Scheurer. Kristin, thanks for being willing to do this. This is a weird ask, I realize. And I've asked you to do a bunch of weird stuff since being on staff.
Yes, you have.
This one's weirder than most. So like I told you, if it ends up being no good and we throw it all away, then that's fine too. But I figured we could sit and have a conversation for an hour and something good will come out of it.
Well, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about working for you, Tanner, is that you can throw things my way and I'll say yes if I can. And if I say no, that's okay too. And then you add, if it's a shitty first draft of something, that is fine.
The SFD process?
Yes.
Okay, so across our leadership team, that is a common thread amongst everybody, is that they're nimble. They're willing to be put in uncomfortable positions and do things slightly outside of their skill set or their comfort zone. Because I think the SFD process has a lot to do with that. Like the comfortability of putting something out into the open that's not a totally fleshed out thing. It's not perfect. It's just a shitty first draft.
Are you going to patent that concept?
I don't. I remember having the conversation with Mike when that first came up, and I had called it a shitty first draft, and he was like, "The SFD. That's what it is. It's the SFD."
Yes, it is.
And that became a thing instantly.
Well, and I think it gives people the ability to put something out there that's not perfect, especially for people who like to be perfect.
Yeah.
This is my public persona. This is the perfect person I put forward every day.
Yeah.
And it gives you the, it gives you the excuse that I don't have to be perfect, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Is it harder for you to do that? Are you wired to want to put something out that's perfect?
Oh, yes, totally.
You and Tate both, I feel like, you both want to have your thing put together and have it be very well thought out before it gets released into the wild.
That is me.
And I'm the type that's the exact opposite.
Yes.
Like, just tell me what comes to your brain. It doesn't have to be good. Just put it out there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's as long as I'm here, that's going to be a constant theme of what I ask of you. So what I thought I'd start with, Kristin, is just a little bit of your background, because you're not an IT person. You didn't start as an IT person, but you came to Live Oak as an L1.
Yep, I sure did.
And you're not working that job anymore.
That's right.
So talk a little bit about, you've been with Live Oak for how long now?
I think it's going to be 3 years.
3 years. And what did you do prior to coming here?
I was working for...
it's longer than 3.
Has it? Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, because you've been here since before COVID.
Time flies when you're having so much fun.
That's what it is.
So I was working at a software as a service company, and on their help desk.
On their help desk. Doing technical help desk stuff?
Technical help desk stuff.
Okay.
And
but then before that, you were doing something outside of tech altogether, weren't you?
Yes, I was doing marketing.
Marketing. Tell me about the weaving of the path from marketing into IT, because there's not a direct path from one to the other.
Well, marketing as a profession has been shifting over the years, and it requires technology to really scale and do things, and it's really become digital. And in almost every case where I was hired to come in and manage a department and move the company to a different way of thinking and executing on the marketing plan, I would create a strategy that inevitably required technology. And the question was always, well, who's going to put this in place? Who's going to set this, HubSpot up? And who's going to, buy this advertising and, get the tracking software up? And it was always like, okay. So over time, I became that person that would just dig in and start learning it and set it up. And then that's when I realized that really what I was doing was I was executing, I was like marketing process and improvement and doing that. So I realized that what I really, really liked was not so much the strategy piece, although I was good at it. I really liked taking the technology, because the technology is what enables you to do the modern day marketing stuff.
Yeah, you like
So-
the execution part of it in addition to the strategy.
Yeah,
part of it.
totally.
Yeah. Well, that's a through line of your career at Live Oak, I'd say, because you started as an L1. I would say anybody that worked with you as an L1 would say you did well with that job, despite the fact that you're not built for it. Like, you could have continued doing that job indefinitely and been fine. But it seemed like if we could kick you into a different lane, your ceiling for where you could go would be much, much higher than if we just kept you in a tech support role. So talk about where that transitioned. So you were in support. We had a job to fill elsewhere, which was onboarding. Talk about that process, because you had a real unique approach to that career shift.
I think that probably it was recognized that every time I would do some kind of technical task, I would be looking in our knowledge base and I'd be like, well, this is crappy. I want that thing that goes step by step. Here's how you do it. So step 1, screenshot. Step 2, screenshot. I wanted it to be all, nice in our knowledge base, and when I'd go in there, I would see this. What does that say? I could interpret the instructions in like 5 different ways. And then I'd follow them and I'm like, well, this doesn't even work. So I discovered that I wanted to make things easier for everybody that went behind me. So I was like wanting to figure something out and then share it with the team so that we could all do things more efficiently, we could get things done faster. And I think that recognizing that I had that interest was like the first step in going, oh, maybe I can be of value there, right? And I think eventually that transitioned into we have a crappy first draft of
We already recorded
onboarding.
shitty
Yes.
first draft. You can't get out of it. That's already on camera.
Of onboarding, and it literally was a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a list of things that you need to collect from a customer and understand from a customer. And I was like, wow, that's not enough. And I think that's when you guys asked me, come up with what that process should look like, and that ended up with the sticky notes on my white wall in my apartment, and
Color-coded sticky notes.
color-coded them, put them into categories, and then started working and testing it to see if this process was a good process. And throughout the entire time, asking the customer, hey, what should we have done better, or what was your experience? And then making slight modifications to it all along the process, and then redoing and re-looking at it and figuring out, if we do this step and this step and this step, can we switch those steps if a customer has a unique situation where, there's a dependency that we have to think about, or they've got an urgency that something needs to be done quicker. So it was getting that, shitty first draft on my board, and taking a step back and looking at it and saying, hey, can we start with this?
Yeah.
And
I
then-
remember that really well, because it was so unlike anything that had been produced at Live Oak before, because it was so well thought out. Most of what we did before then was just kind of ad-libbing. We were very, very good ad-libbers.
Yes.
And then formalizing a process that started as ad-libbing is not an easy thing to do, and it requires a totally different way of thinking about problems than I think about them.
Yeah.
And I remember you putting it up on the whiteboard. I remember you having your sticky notes and saying, these things all have a reason for what color they are, but I'll show you in a minute.
Yep.
And you had it set up and you said, this is our process today. And then you went through the process of moving things around and saying, this is why this is colored this way, and this actually is not good for this part of the process. It needs to be moved over here. And it was like, we need more of this at Live Oak if we're going to continue to grow. So I appreciated that immensely. But that's also not your current job, onboarding. It's part of your department.
Yeah,
but
it's part of my department.
Talk
yes.
about your existing role.
Yeah. So
Actually, first, pronounce your freaking last name.
Oh, yes. Kristin Scheurer.
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 Why is there an R in the middle of your last name?
Those
The R is silent?
crazy Germans decided that there needed to be a few extra letters in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
Scheurer.
yes, that's
Scheurer.
yes, I get that a lot. Scheurer.
Scheurer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your current title?
Yes. Customer Experience Director.
Director of CX.
Yes.
Customer Experience. So talk about, you had mentioned what a customer experiences with us during onboarding. When does the customer experience start? Talk about the framework of customer experience, how you think about it.
Yeah.
Where does the customer experience with us start? Where does it end? What all do you touch? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the customer experience, it really starts the minute they hear the name Live Oak IT Partners. And it's everything in pre-sales. I call it pre-sales, but it's everything from the website, the logo, what impressions do they get, what kind of an idea do they get from looking at even our design elements, to what kind of an interaction do they first have, so it's everything. Everything is first impressions in the very beginning. And that continues throughout the process of being with Live Oak. And really it's in perpetuity. It really is, because we don't ever stop thinking about what their experience is and how can we make it better. And so there has been so much really great development, especially from talking directly with customers. I mean, that's where we get the very best information. And if you just ask, and if we just listen, our customers will tell us what they need, how they need it, and when they need it.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of figuring out how do we deliver that in the way that they envision and the way they want to receive it.
Yeah,
And
that's been
so-
my experience too, is that if you have a good relationship with a customer and you ask them sincerely for feedback, you're going to get feedback. And some of it is not necessarily something you could replicate. Like some of the things they want you to do for them, okay, we could do that as like an ad hoc, we'll put it together for them, but it can't be replicated. And then sometimes you'll ask a customer for feedback and they'll tell you something that you may have already known in the back of your head needed to be addressed, but
Yeah.
they bring it up and it's like,
Yep.
okay,
Validated.
I guess we have to address that.
Validated, right.
Do you have any examples of that? What are some things that customers have given you feedback on that you've taken and said, okay, we need to change the process?
Yeah, so we very, very early stage when I was putting together what that process was going to look like.
The onboarding process?
The onboarding process, and I took 2 nonprofits through that process, and I loved that I asked them for feedback, and I loved that they actually loved that I asked, and that they were very thoughtful about it. They got their team together, they put together a really great list, and some of the things that they recommended, we've put into place. Like one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting is during the process, if they needed something from Live Oak in the past, we would just say, open a support ticket, and then our internal team will direct it to the right person so that you don't need to know who you need to send it to. Well, this nonprofit said, hey, wouldn't it be really nice if we had a dedicated person from the very beginning? And I said, great idea. We would love that. So that was the idea that led to having a dedicated account manager for each and every customer that they start with from day one. And so every question can go directly to that account manager. They can still open a support ticket if they know that it's a help desk type thing, but this way they've got a dedicated person that they get to know, that gets to know them over a period of time to really cultivate that partnership, so that the partnership is just more robust.
And that person stays with them from the very get-go through managing the relationship in perpetuity.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you know, you touched on something else that I think is important related to customer experience, is that anything from the moment the customer has an awareness of us as a company is part of that customer experience. And it extends through firing a customer.
Yes.
The way that we go about getting rid of a customer. For whatever reason, we have to get rid of them. You want to talk about that a little bit? What's that like?
Well, I think that it's a very thoughtful thing, right?
It has to be, right?
Yes, yes.
There's
yes.
probably more sensitivity around getting rid of a customer than there is taking on a new customer. Because when you're taking on a new customer, it's honeymoon phase. Like they're excited to be taking on a new provider.
Yes.
But when you're getting rid of one.
Well, and I don't like to think of it as getting rid of a customer. I think of it as sending them out to a solution that's going to be better suited to them.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you know, having customers that have moved on from Live Oak, it's a good way for us to reflect on why that happened and what could we have done, but also what could we have done to better educate the customer about what our service is. I think one of the things that I've developed that I really like is that if we've got like a customer that comes to one of the account managers or even to me and says, hey, I've got a complaint, right? The very first thing I want to know is I want to set up a session, like a quick get together to really listen and to understand what the issue is. And when I do that, I'll investigate. So I'll listen, then I'll investigate the behind the scenes, you know, what really happened. So I'm getting all the facts, like what day did it happen, who was involved, what department is of the issue, you know, what were the expectations of the person. And then do an internal investigation. I usually get a ticket number, so I have something. I can read the logs, and then we'll troubleshoot it. And one of the Live Oak policies, which I love, is if we screwed up, we admit it.
We'll own it.
We will own it,
Yeah.
and we will let them know, hey, you were right.
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 And then figure out from there, how are we going to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah. Because those things are inevitable.
They are inevitable.
It's a human business.
Exactly.
We know the technology, we can work with the technology, but it's still a human being doing the work.
That's exactly right. And what leads to a really good partnership too is if I can identify something that the customer could also do to better their experience. I had a situation where a customer came to us and they said, you know, we're not getting the response time that we think we should. We're very, very proud of our 15-minute-ish response time. And if customers don't get a response within 15 minutes, and it gets to be 30, well, then they just need to use one of the other methods to reach out to us, because we're really, really proud of that response time. So this customer came to us and said, we're not getting the response, the immediate response that we think we should. And I'm like, wow, that is really curious.
Yeah,
because,
it's not like us.
Yeah, it's not like us, because majority of the time when I ask customers, hey, what are our strengths? It's our response time,
yeah.
right?
Same thing. I get the same feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all are so quick.
Yeah, exactly. And customers love that and they need that.
Right.
So we scheduled a time to talk, and as we were talking, she said, you know, since you eliminated the ability for us to call you on the phone, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wait, back up, say that again. Time out what? I said, yeah, you know, we didn't. What makes you think that happened? And she said, well, I got this communication that said that you were changing the ticketing system and that you were going to this email thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I do recall when that happened. And yes, we did send out a communication, but we did not get rid of the ability to call us. And that's your best way to call if something's urgent, like you lost your password, you need it reset ASAP because you can't get onto working, you know, what you need to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's those little things that you go, wow, it's such a simple solution. And so, especially in this case, once we had this conversation, it was like, epiphany, hello. And it was that. But in addition to that, I said, if your employees ever experience something where they're not entirely happy, please, after every ticket, we send a quick survey that says, how'd we do? And it's got the three smiley faces. You know, one is the sad face. We don't see those much. One is the medium face. It's kind of like, yeah, it's okay. And then it's the, you know, huzzah, you guys are fabulous. That smiley face is the one we get the majority, like 99% of the time.
I think it's 98 point something,
Yes.
98.7%
Yes,
of the time.
yes, and we're very proud of that.
Yeah.
So what I said is, if your employees do not have the experience that meets their expectation, do that survey immediately so that we can address it.
Yeah. Early on, I had a concern about asking for critical feedback from customers, because there's a certain type of person that only leaves negative Yelp reviews. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's some people that don't feel like they got the experience that they were hoping to get ever, and they always want to tell you about it.
Yes.
And so, on one hand, you want the feedback so you know what to improve upon, because you know you have blind spots, and it's the nature of a blind spot is you're blind to it.
Yeah.
So you need somebody who can give you that feedback in a way that it's productive. But on the other hand, you don't want to just open yourself up to criticism that may or may not be given in good faith. So when you're looking at our customer base, you haven't been involved in firing many customers, for lack of a better term. And fortunately, we haven't taken on many customers where we had to part ways with them, you know, for either our reasons or their reasons. But how would you characterize the character traits? What are the character traits of what you would consider to be a really good customer? Or if it's easier, what are the characteristics of a really bad customer?
That's a really intriguing question. It's intriguing because our name is Live Oak IT Partners. It says right in our name what our value is, that we want to partner with our clients. And partnership goes both ways, right? So really good partners, we have really great communication. And it's not just that. I'm always curious about the company that hires us to do our thing, tech support, manage, service tech support, and then ghosts us.
You can't get a hold of them.
We try and reach out and then ghost. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's not the definition of a partnership, right? It has to go both ways. And so I think our strongest relationships and our strongest partnerships, our strongest customers are the ones that we have that two-way relationship with. I think that's so vitally important in communication, in responsiveness. And, we have to have an understanding of what their goals, the customer's goals are, to know where it is that they are going with their business, to understand how the technology needs to support the really good work that they do.
Right.
So that's also really, really important. So that's why it's so important that we know each other. We know each other's the IT environment, but we know each other on a personal level. It's really important.
Yeah, especially considering the bulk of our customers have no IT department.
Right.
There are no IT personnel on staff.
Right.
So we can do everything an IT department can do, except for know what's in the leadership team's head. Where's the business going? What's our budget? Is this a healthy business, or are we dying on the vine? What's the company going to look like 2 years from now? Like, if you were hired as an IT director of that business, you would ask all those questions before you even took the job.
Right.
Yet we found most managed service relationships, particularly the ones that we're supplanting, where we're replacing an incumbent that didn't do their job well,
Right.
that's where it stems from. Is there was never a communication back and forth on what's going on with this business and how can we build the technology in order to facilitate that. It's always just, well, we know what we're doing, so call us when you need us, kind of a thing.
Right.
That's pretty common.
Yes.
And it starts early.
Oh, it does. It starts really early.
Yeah.
It starts really early. As a matter of fact, we get a lot of clients that come from other MSPs and
Define MSP.
Managed service provider.
Okay.
Yep. From other situations where the customer just wants somebody to think through with them strategically, like do we have the right technology in place? Are we using the right software? Can we save money if we do this or that? They're looking for that bigger thinker to help get them, because customers, they know their business really, really well.
Yeah.
That's why they're successful. Not every company knows the technology piece, nor do they want to.
Right.
And so that's where we can really deliver a lot of value. Once we get through that onboarding, they're in account management, then they've got the benefit of having that VCIO, the virtual CIO, that really looks at everything from a holistic perspective and works with them to put a roadmap together over a period of time so that it's manageable and gets them to where they really want to go.
Yeah. So in your experience, you've been involved primarily with existing customers during your tenure here, but I've also roped you into a lot of sales meetings. Like pre-sales, this is a prospect, we haven't signed with them yet, but they're really curious to know about account management or onboarding. What's the first 60 days look like?
Yes.
So there's a couple questions nested in here. One would be, in your experience in sales meetings, what are questions that you see come up a lot from a prospect? What are the things that they're typically thinking about?
Yep.
And then a second question along those lines would be, what projects do you typically see that come out of onboarding? What are some things that you run into frequently?
Okay. Yeah. Some of the well, I think most. Let me back that up.
Okay.
I would say many prospects, the very first thing they want to know is, how much time is onboarding going to take?
Yeah.
Can we just get through it? Because
Right.
I want to go on vacation. I don't want to be leading this. I was volunteered to do this. I just want it done, right? Because
Right.
there's some pain point that they're experiencing.
That's why they're
and they
talking to us in the
just
first place,
want it to
right?
go away. Yes, yes. So most of the time when that happens, I'm very confident to say, we got you. We got you. It's going to be just easy breezy.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always something that comes up that is a challenge or something we didn't know in onboarding. It happens, but we've seen it. We've seen a lot. Yeah. So for us, we're accustomed to that. So hopefully the experience of the customer is, okay, yeah, Livehook's got it.
Yeah, because there's always a little bit of nuance in those onboarding projects. The sales side of the business that I've lived on pretty much the entire time we've been in business, we do our best to gather as much info as we can prior to signing that client so that we know what we're taking on.
Right.
But in 99 times out of 100, there's something there as we're onboarding that we didn't know about, that we hadn't seen before. Some project that is long overdue. The customer should have done this 4 years ago, but so be it. We took them on. Now we're here.
Right.
Are there any common themes there? Projects you see that during the course of onboarding you go, God, they've got to do this.
Well, I think that a lot of the projects, a lot of times what we see is, and this is just a simple one, but like customers are using like both Google Workspace and they're using Microsoft 365. They're using both of those in their environment. They're probably because there's a certain team that says, I'm so familiar with Google that I just don't want to use Microsoft. And then there's this other team over here that they're like, well, we need to use Microsoft. And that's usually the finance teams or the accounting teams because Google just doesn't do very well with that, right? The tools. And so.
And we have to have Word and Excel
we have
anyways,
to have that. We have to have that, yes. Yeah. And so both of these opposing sides, they don't want to come over to the other side because then they have to learn something. And so that is one of the easiest ways to save the company money right off the bat, because those licenses can be expensive, and if you can get rid of one and just go with one, it's less management time. It's it's easier to navigate, and it could be as simple as a few videos on how to learn the technology. But
Right.
I mean, those are actually pretty common ones, and leadership is usually like pegged between the two sides, and so they're polarized. They're like,
Right.
we don't know what to do.
And sometimes they need us to come in and be the
Yes.
bad guy for the
Yes.
faction of the team that wants the other tool set.
That's exactly
They
right.
need to be able to blame IT.
That's right.
Sorry, guys. Our
Yes.
new MSP came in.
Yes.
They're forcing our hand to go
Right.
one way or the other.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're a good whipping boy for
Yeah.
stuff like
Yep.
that.
Yep. There's a good example.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so imagine you've got a friend who is looking to onboard with us, and they're really wanting to know what's that process like, to the point that you made. Like they're over IT, they're done talking about it, they've been having all kinds of frustrations with their current provider, they've already made the decision to go to us, and now they're just ready to get on with it. So can you talk about what somebody's expectation should be for the first, say, 60 days of a relationship?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it starts with a telephone call. Thank you. Welcome for joining us. We are so excited about this new partnership, right?
The first impression.
The first impression.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's a friendly call, and it's hopefully a good first impression, followed by a kickoff call as soon as we can get it on the calendar. In the kickoff call, we do explaining what the process is, talking through any urgent projects or urgent needs, introducing to the team both ways. And then before we get off that meeting, we are scheduling a weekly touch base. So we like to position it to think about it as a project. And every touch point, I want to make sure that it's a good one, right? And so from there, we go through a process of phases. And the first phase is where we gather documentation. And that phase is probably the most customer heavy, because they're looking into their databases of things and finding lists, and who's the admin for this software, and who's the person for this, and how do we set our computers up, and we're just gathering all of this documentation and passwords and all of that stuff. And then the Live Oak team starts doing their work, which is doing a site visit to validate if there's a physical office or locations, to make sure that we fully understand what the IT environment is and how the network is set up. And then we set up the customer in our own dashboard, so that they can have visibility to see what we're collecting and what we're doing. And then we deploy help desk agents on all computers. We do a help desk orientation, because we know it's most critical that all of the employees, know what's happening, they know how to get help when they need it, and they understand how to click on the little Live Oak leaf to get help. And then we wrap up and we celebrate this great new
Our
partnership.
first project is done.
Yes.
Celebrate.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The surprising thing to me, we just crossed our 100 customer threshold last year.
Yeah, very excited.
The surprising thing to me about that customer base, the times that we take on an account from a competitor, from an incumbent managed service provider, it's shocking to me how little documentation we inherit from that outgoing MSP.
Yes. It's shocking to me.
We've been doing the onboarding process and placing such an emphasis on documentation for so long now that it's just like of course you need to have very thorough documentation of your IT tools. But it seems like there's not many companies that place that level of emphasis on it. And for most of our customers, again, there's no internal IT person. So there's nobody there whose responsibility it is to document those things in a way that their replacement can step in and continue to support that company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. So again, the bulk of our customers, there is no internal IT. We are their IT department. But talk about the nuance of a relationship we take on where we're supporting an internal IT person versus the customers where we are their IT department. What's unique about each scenario?
So I think what's kind of unique about a company that has an internal like IT director, oftentimes what I've seen is that the IT director is, very experienced person, and the company wants that person, that IT director, to do more strategic work. But what I've seen is that they get like stuck in the minutia of the everyday tasks, and with lots of people coming to them and saying, well, we need help with this, and my computer just went on the fritz. And so they get really stuck in trying to solve all of those little problems throughout the day. And all of that is very important because employees need to get back to work so they can do their good work, right? So it's hard for the IT director to see that there's this problem that's right in front of me, but I'm supposed to be working on something more strategic, like implementing different software or a different solution for something. So in a situation like that, Live Oak can really come in and be their internal help desk, so that IT director and work like side by side, right? Like the outsourced internal IT help desk, so that the big thinker can do the big thinker things.
Why do you feel like it's so hard for IT directors to do that? Because I've seen that too a lot, where you're dealing with an IT director, unless it was their idea for you to be there, which sometimes it is, and those are great. But more often, we run into somebody who's very protective, and even though they want to be doing the strategic things, they find themselves in the tactical, and they're so consumed by the tactical day-to-day maintenance of the IT environment, they never get to the strategic.
Yeah, I think.
Why?
Yes, I think some of it is it's what is right in front of you. Like the strategic things, there's probably not an emergency happening right now with the strategic things, because that's something that's more planned out, something that's more far term. But this emergency, that's something's blowing up in your face, you're like, oh my God, I got to take care of this right now. And I think that's really what it is. It's like, it's two completely different thoughts.
Yeah.
Like two completely different ways to work. And when you've got both, you're going to prioritize what's blowing up in front of you versus what you need to do down the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's also an element sometimes of we're a little bit of a threat to that person.
Oh, yes, that
Not
could
on
be.
purpose.
Yeah.
And most often, we're not there to replace that person.
Right.
There are times where we get called in with the express purpose of replacing the internal IT person. Those are very rare.
Very rare.
More likely, it's that the leadership team of that business recognizes, God, I want to get this guy out of the day-to-day service mode.
Yes.
And I don't want to have to go hire 3 or 4 people for their team.
Exactly.
And so they're trying to get that person to get out of their own way,
Right.
for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, that's exactly
So
right.
that happens a lot too.
Yeah, and it's really it's a new partnership, really.
Yeah.
And we don't mean to, we don't never want to be intimidating, because we're really there to support, right? The IT director is still in charge. He's still calling the shots. We're there to support that work.
Right. Yeah. It's a good point. You have different personality makeups too. They're generally, all this is generalizing,
Yeah.
but when you're dealing with an IT person, somebody that got into IT as a way to make a living, their skill set is not always geared towards being proactive, thinking about their job a little more abstractly than just what they're dealing with day to day. Looking at through the windshield of the car instead of looking at what you're about to run over.
Right.
They're more often wired for the immediacy and not wired for the long-term thinking. And some of that has to do with we talk about this a lot, but the IQ, EQ scale, the makeup of that person. Somebody that gets into IT professionally, they're a little higher on the IQ scale. They're very thing smart.
Yeah.
They like gadgetry, they like puzzles, they like things that are a little more inanimate, I guess. The people side is lower on their skill set. So IQ, EQ, they're heavier on the IQ side. We have that challenge too, right? We're hiring IT people.
We do.
Of the 40 people we have on staff, what percentage of those are IT professionals?
Ooh, gosh.
Most?
Most, yeah.
80% probably or more?
Yeah, I would say.
So we've done a really good job of screening for EQ,
Right.
trying to find people that have the ability to do this.
Yes.
But we still have to hire the IQ. So can you talk about that a little bit? What's been your experience with our team and the challenges that we have or maybe don't have in balancing, hiring somebody with the IQ that we need them to have to do the job, but also making sure we're getting the personality component right?
Yeah. I think that you said it really well, or maybe Mike said it really well once, that we're looking for the unicorn. And it took me a really long time to figure out what that meant. And really, it's exactly what you just said what it means. It means somebody who has really high technical aptitude, but also has really great communication skills, can empathize with a customer, can articulate really well. And finding those two qualities that are really strong in a person, that's the unicorn, because it's really hard.
It's very rare.
Yes, yes. And I think that Live Oak does a really, really good job. I don't know what the secret sauce is, but a really good job of finding those people and employing those people. And I think that is why it makes my job so easy, because everybody in the company knows that they are responsible for the customer experience. And we're acutely aware of that. So being able to really connect in a really good way with customers is top priority.
Yeah, I'd say the secret sauce there is culture. And that culture we built, I wouldn't say intentionally. I mean, we always knew what we were going for, what we wanted the culture of the company to be, but so much of that gets out of your control once you're past 5 to 10 people. You lose control of what your culture would be, right? And so I think the cultural element, the thing that we've done right, the thing that our culture has allowed us to do is attract more of those unicorn types, because real recognizes real, right? And somebody that's wired that way, they know that they're unique.
Yeah.
Somebody that's a very proficient IT person, but can also speak plain English and explain something technical to somebody who's not technical in a way that they can understand it, that's not a common skill set. Most of those people know they're a little uncommon, first of all. And most of those people know somebody who's also wired like them, because they recognize real in somebody else.
Yep.
So you see, I mean, you've seen it in your tenure here. How many times when we have a job to hire for, how many times do we go out to the market to find that person versus just hiring somebody who's a referral from somebody that already works here?
Yeah.
Most often we get people from referrals.
Yeah.
People recognize it in each other.
Well, and part of that is, people who work at Live Oak really like what they do.
Yeah, making it a good place to work.
Right.
It helps a lot.
So, having your friend come join you is like, wow, I get to work with my friend and we're having so much fun. It's great.
God, those have been some of our best hires too, where we just knew, God, we were going to have to make a hire for this. We mention it to the team and somebody raises their hand and says, I know a girl that we should talk to. We should talk about hiring her. And those are always typically, I won't say always, they're typically slam dunk hires. Yeah. Talk about what excites you professionally. What is it that keeps you working? What are you excited to get into? What do you aspire to professionally? What are you excited about your life here? Or maybe not here. Maybe you're going to quit.
No. One of the things that you asked me recently was, when you think about a company that makes that is just exceeds in their customer experience, who is it? And I said to you, I know who I think, but would other people think the same thing? So I put a post on LinkedIn and I said, what companies come to mind when you think of a company that really makes it easy to do business with and their experience is so effortless, who would that be? And it would be no surprise that you get answers like Apple, Amazon, you know, the big, big, big companies. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's true. But Live Oak Partners is a very small company, small-ish,
Compared to
Amazon and Apple.
Yeah.
So, and we're really nimble, and we're open to new ideas.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, we're going to be that next one,
Yeah.
where we have refined the customer experience and we keep optimizing it and making it better and better over time, that people will just be super fans of
Right.
Live Oak IT Partners.
Right. What are some of the companies that you think of when you think of that customer experience being dialed in? Did you have something that came to mind when I asked you that?
Yeah.
Who were they?
One of the ones for me is IKEA.
IKEA.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Yeah. Because I love their showroom, and I can go and just pick, go downstairs, grab the box of what I want, take it home, and then put it together.
The lack of friction
Yes.
involved in getting a
Yes.
piece of IKEA furniture.
Right. Like I can do it all in one day.
Yeah.
And I can go eat lunch in their little, you know,
Right.
restaurant and have
Right.
Swedish meatballs and
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
put my feet up and then keep shopping.
Yeah, that does have something to do with the experience, that it'd be frictionless. That there's not these places where you feel like, oh, we're getting bogged down, this
Right.
is taking forever to do.
Yep.
Especially for something like furniture shopping, which has a lot of friction to it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, they've thought through a lot of the nuance of how the customer experiences their product.
Right.
Yeah.
You do.
For me, it was Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was always the company to emulate because they can take this huge influx of customers that come in midday for lunch, and they've thought through every little element, including where the customer turns off of the main road onto their road. How can we more efficiently move traffic through these windows by opening multiple lanes? And
Yeah.
that doesn't have direct relatability to our business, unless you're thinking about it in a pretty meta way.
Yeah.
But if you think about, like, if we take on a bunch of customers at once, where are the points in their onboarding process, or from the time that they sign to the time that they're a fully functioning customer, where are the points of friction there?
Right.
It just requires attention to detail.
It does. It
And
does.
It's minutia stuff,
yes,
too.
it is. It is.
It's like at the end of the ordering, it's the secret sauce that you don't know why you had such a good experience. You just know that you had a good experience.
Yeah.
Until you start paying attention to it, and then you realize the way that that person's taking your order, the questions they're asking you, the fact that at the end of it, they always say, "It's my pleasure."
Yes.
Like, it just leaves you with a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Those things can be
Literally, a good
totally
taste in your
yeah,
mouth.
literally a good taste in your mouth. Those are the things that I feel like we can emulate
Yes.
and continue to make better.
Yeah,
We're still
absolutely.
I think the thing that I'm the most excited about in the work that you're doing, Kristen, is that we've come so far when you're looking in hindsight at what, say, onboarding was when we gave it to you.
Yeah.
It's such a different thing now 2 years later. But I'm very excited about the things yet to come because
Yeah.
I still feel like we're in our infancy
We
in
are.
terms of what we can do customer experience-wise.
Yeah.
It's such an important function for us.
It is.
So is there anything else in that excites you, or anything that you want to get to work on that you just haven't gotten to yet?
Well, one of the things was taking the shitty first draft and actually being able to scale it, right?
Right.
Because when I was first putting it together, everything was just manual. It was like we had spreadsheets and you know, documents with this, that, and the other, and it just not scalable. Yeah. So the fun part was finding a software platform that we could build that process in and then automate things so that it would go smoothly and build in touch points where there's you know, a survey that somebody could take, and really making that the full platform of where everything lives.
Right.
And so far, we're getting really good feedback about how easy it is. So that's really a good sign. So I'm really excited about that, but I think that can be just built out so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited about what we've seen in the last 4 years, especially, is that our average customer size has grown. And the customers we've taken on, particularly in the past 2 years, I think in our first 2 years in business, may have put us out of business. Just because there's so much nuance in those bigger environments, there's so much more attention to detail you have to have.
Right.
There's so much less tolerance for error.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to have your stuff together to go take on a big customer
Yeah,
like that.
for sure.
So whereas 5 years ago, if we'd have taken on a customer with 50 people, it would have seemed like, okay, we got to go all hands on deck and make sure we're paying real close attention to this one.
Right.
Now we take on a customer with 50 people every month, every other month, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I know we can hand it off to the onboarding team, and
Yeah.
it's going to get done well.
Yeah, it
So
will.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
If you leave Live Oak and you're working for another company who's considering outsourcing IT, how do you help them make the decision on whether or not to outsource IT versus whether or not to hire a department internally, or some blending of the two?
That's interesting.
That question makes sense?
It does. I think that you have to start with what's the end in mind. Like, what's the goal? Is the company trying to save some money? Is the company trying to improve the quality of the service delivery? I think that you have to think about what's the end goal, because in some cases, if you increase the price, the quality should go up, right? And so, what are the levers that you can pull or push to get the best result?
Yeah. What would be the context where you would tell somebody, hey, don't outsource? Obviously, you ask a painter if your house needs to be painted, they're going to tell you, yeah, you need to paint your house, because they're in the business of it. So if I ask you, hey, do I need to outsource IT? I'm kind of expecting you to tell me, yeah, you probably need to outsource your IT. But is there a context where you would tell somebody, hey, no, that's not a good idea?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think the belief might be that if you outsource IT, then you lose sort of some of your identity, you lose some of your control. But I think it's, if you pick the right partner, you don't lose that control. You become an ally together.
Yeah.
So, there might be those perceptions, but it's really about picking the right partner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think even in the biggest environments, like we've got one we're working on now together that's a big client in New York. I think even those big customers, there's something they can be doing to outsource. There's something they can outsource in their IT department that's a more effective use of funds than it would be if they brought that role in-house. And it may not be the whole department. It may be that you've got leadership that are on staff that are focused on information systems the company uses that are specific to them, making sure those systems are talking well to each other and are integrated appropriately. And then there's just the day-to-day, like, ticketing of problems with users and keeping track of what's going on that really doesn't need to be an internal function, particularly if there can be some sort of cohesive department structure between internal people and external people. I think the fully staffed internal IT department's probably a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
We're not seeing it as much.
I don't see it hardly at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's just a really, like, a tight regulatory environment or something where you really have to have control over who has access to your stuff.
I think one of the biggest compliments that we've gotten from a few customers is that they feel like Live Oak IT is just part of their team, their internal team.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, I love that too.
We do hear it often.
Yeah, we do, and I love that, because that's really the goal. That you think of us as your internal team.
Right. Yeah, and we can be as close to that as you can imagine without actually sitting physically in the office together.
Right.
COVID was kind of a helper for that.
Oh, for sure.
You know, where you had people that had to get moved to their home office anyways, and they were only ever going to deal with the remote IT person.
Yeah.
It's a little easier for us to integrate with their team remotely now than it would have been, say, 4 years ago.
And we're even seeing companies that are going 100% remote, even though we've seen, like in the news, that they're starting to bring, you know, employees back into offices. But gosh, you know, the explosion of 100% remote companies, it's there, and it seems to be sticking.
Yeah, there's also that percentage of companies that signed some big long-term lease
Yeah.
2 or 3 years before COVID hit, and they're just looking at their watch going,
Right.
we got 3 more years left. We got 2 more years left.
Tick.
Yeah. That's a hard check to cut when you walk into your office and it's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Kristin, anything else? Anything you want to talk about? This is what I wanted to get out of you. I wanted to just have a conversation with you about what your experience at Live Oak has been, because you've been such a valuable part of what we've done since you've been here. So what would you like to talk about? Anything? Anything you want to get on the record?
Yes, on the record. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
While we're here and recording?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, this has been an amazing opportunity for me. I never would have imagined that I would have been able to grow in this way with Live Oak. And it's because of you and the leadership team recognize that, you know, I might not have been such a great fit here, but I have skills and talents in this other place that, you know, you give me a shot. And I was like, I'm going to take it, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I just love that you will throw things at us, make us uncomfortable, as we say, yes, and then we figure it out. And then, you know, once we do something and we feel like, hey, this was a success, and we all, you know, look at it and go, great. It's just, it's a confidence builder in a place where I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really appreciate that. You know, I've had this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
Hope to see it, you know, for a long time.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, you're a permanent fixture here, so that's not in question. I think that you know, when we're talking about our leadership team and your place on it, you hold the line very well on being able to be pushed past your comfort zone and not go on tilt and fall apart, because you know, the business that we're in is complicated enough that if you are siloed and you're having to do things within a very well-defined box and you're not willing to do things outside of that box, you're probably not going to make it here.
I would agree.
And the people that have been in leadership positions that haven't been able to maintain that well, or to just maintain their composure and figure things out as they go, they're not on the team anymore. You know, so that's not credit to me, that's credit to you and your colleagues being able to be pushed hard. That's my job, is to push you hard, right?
Well, it's working. It's working. Yay!
So far. Yeah. Good.
Bigger, better, stronger.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for taking time to do this. I've appreciated it.
Appreciate it.
All right. This is good. This is exactly what I wanted to achieve. This is good.